Hello, and welcome back to our continuing study on practical Christianity. Today we're going to look at riches from James 5 1 to 6. Come now, you rich people, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments have become moth eaten. Your gold and your silver have corroded, and the corrosion will serve as a testimony against you. You will consume against you and will consume your flesh like fire. It is in the last days that you have stored up your treasure. Behold, pay the laborers who mowed your fields, and which have been withheld by you, cries out against you. And the outcry of those who did the harvesting have reached the ears of the Lord of armies. You have lived for pleasure on the earth, and lived luxuriously. You have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous person. He offers you no resistance. What is wrong with having riches? What can happen with obtaining of abundance? Riches in and of themselves are neither right nor wrong. What riches do to the person who has them becomes a problem. We see in James that the problem of riches is the tendency of the person in possession of them to take the focus off of God, the provider, and place it on the possession, the riches. When we place our focus on the gift rather than the gifter, we start to reduce other persons to the value we place on them, what they can do for us, and not the value God places on them, what we can do for them. James talks of three problems that arise from acquiring riches. I think the term riches used here is deliberately ambiguous because the amount of possessions that are owned versus the amount one is owned by the possessions varies with the individual. The first problem we see in this passage is the desire for more, one more dollar, the desire for just a little more. The problem draws our focus from where the riches come, the gift, the true giver of gifts, and places it on the ability to attain more. We looked at this in the last study, how we start to see ourselves as in control of our own fate. The second problem arises when we allow what we have to shade our view of the value of others. What I have is worth more than not only what you have, but ultimately what I see your worth to be as a person. At this point, we see our position as a right of possession. This is where we see slavery as being all right because the other person has no value other than their ability to make more for us. But I have a question. Is slavery's definition only the owning of another, the making of another a possession? Are we not also doing the same thing when we place lower value on employees? What about when we treat servers and service people as though they owe us for waiting on us? James tells us that when we choose to pay our employees and those who serve us lower wages than what we would like to be paid, we are actually robbing God. The third problem comes when we allow our position, our status, to insulate us from the world around us. We allow our hearts to become soft. We choose not to see the suffering of our fellow human beings. God grants us gifts as a loving Father, but He expects us to use them to bless others. When we look at this passage, we see the progression, the downward progression of these riches. First, we acquire the blessing of material possessions. We have the tendency to take our focus off God and place it on the gift. We next seek more material possessions until they own us, not we them. When we cross this line, we no longer own the possessions, they own us. We then start to value not only things, but people based on what it will benefit us. We reward others based on what we value their service to us, how we see them compared to us. Last We close our hearts and our eyes to their suffering because we value our status over their suffering. Where do we stand with our possessions? Do we own them or do they own us? Let us take a hard look at this issue. Let us take the time to evaluate how we bless others from our blessing. Thank you.